Hello, everyone. Happy Motivational Monday. We started it a little differently than usual. I had a comment that came through last week from someone that said, "Hey, I'm in the waiting room before the event starts, and every time I finally hop in, I missed a part of the conversation, and I wish that wouldn't happen." So, we're going to test it out and try it out where I have our main banner and a song that I love sharing on the screen with you all. Um, I'll actually share that song with you all if you don't know what it is. We used to do a lot of song sharing on Motivational Monday, and maybe I miss it a little bit. So, for those of you who are here for your first time, my name is Kira. I am your host of Motivational Monday. It is such an honor and a pleasure to have you here. Tatiana, you can unmute yourself and put your video on at any point that you would like. No stress, no pressure. But you have me and Tatiana here again for another session, and I'm really excited. Today is all about boundaries that deepen connection, and I feel like not I feel like this is a really important conversation because a lot of you have been asking me for this in the survey that you all fill out at the end of this session every Monday. So many of you, I ask what topic you want to speak about, and you all are like, "How do I set boundaries with others?" So not only are we going to talk to you about how to set boundaries with others, we're also going to teach you maybe ways not to or ways to make it easier. We're going to help you understand what boundaries even are, why they're helpful, the whole thing. Um, Side note, I am feeling relatively under the weather today. I feel like I'm like talking through what is it? I think like the aerator in a fish tank, where like it blows all the bubbles. I feel like I'm talking through that right now. Like my head feels crazy, but we're doing it and we're showing up because it's Monday and it's Motivational Monday. So if I seem a little bit more low energy, it's because I am. So, yeah, this week's episode is all about boundaries that deepen connection. Next week's episode is all about the science of why we need each other. So that's more of like the neuroscience of what's happening in your body and your brain of actually needing each other. Now, I'm curious, drop 111 in the chat if this is your first episode here with us. Drop 222 in the chat if you've been here with us before. And oh, we got a lot of repeats. So fun. We have such a fun little community. You all are the best. Imagine if I was just talking to my computer at 11:30 on a Monday morning to no one. That would not be that fun. So, um, we also have a lot of you have been requesting this over and over and over is a large session also about boundaries. Now, this month is all about interpersonal relationships. So, we're teaching you how to navigate all the relationships in your life, whether it's a lover, a friend, a family member, an acquaintance. We're teaching you how to navigate all of those this month. And then next month is professional relationships. So, I want to know, drop 333 in the chat if you are aware that we have taught you how to set personal boundaries last month. Because I was thinking about it. I'm like, dang, we should have done a personal boundaries episode last month. And then I was like, you know what? We did. We did talk about personal boundaries. We talked about changing your perspective with Yvette, with the beach ball analogy of looking at different sides of the beach ball and seeing that there are different ways to view a situation. We talked about love journaling, literally writing a one sentence love letter to yourself. We talked about writing down an annual success journal. We talked about telling yourself, I love you in the mirror. We talked about just telling ourselves we love ourselves in general. And if you haven't told yourself that you love yourself today, write in the chat, I love myself. I just did it. Yes, I'm that speedy of a typer. But all of that requires that you say no to every single thing that isn't self-love and starting to prioritize love. Those are boundaries with yourself. When you're waking up in the morning and instead of scrolling on TikTok and seeing what everyone else is doing with their lives, you're deciding to look in the mirror and tell yourself that you love yourself, that's a freaking boundary. It's like, nope, I will not do the behaviors that I don't want to do. I will do the behaviors that I do want to do. You have to start with yourself. Look at all the love in the chat. You all are so good. So with that, we have our larger Connect event this month that's going to be mostly focused on boundaries. I just dropped a link in the chat for you. That's where you'll find everything. You'll find access to registering for life guides. You will find access to registering for Motivational Monday. You'll find access to all of our recordings, all of our worksheets, the whole entire thing. So I would suggest joining our larger Leading in Love Connect conversation this month, where we do dive even deeper into boundaries, but we're going to dive in with Tatiana today. And I'm also going to put up a poll on the screen while I'm reading Tatiana's bio. This poll is really to gauge how much you've grown in your self-love over the past month. So let's see, polls and quizzes, launch. Okay, you should see a poll on your screen. It doesn't require too much of you, so I'll be talking while you're doing the poll. I'll give you about 3 minutes and then I will close it out. And I use these statistics a lot for a lot of things. So having anything that I request of you to fill out or to respond to, I promise you it's always for a reason and it's always helpful to me. So if I'm helpful to you every morning, every Monday morning, then maybe you can be helpful to me and fill this out. Okay, so with that being said, we have Tatiana here. A lot of you may have seen her before. She has done actually quite a few sessions with me over the past couple of months, and she's amazing. She is a wellness practitioner who supports individuals in emotional healing, self love, and authentic expression through somatic practices. And if you don't know what somatic practices are, they're more practices that bring you into your body and are based on your somatic body lived, felt experience. Yoga, meditation, and vocal sound release. Her work emphasizes that wellness is not just about what we eat or how we move, but also about how we speak to ourselves. How fitting, right? She helps people bring awareness to unconscious patterns like negative self talk and lack of self boundaries, often rooted in childhood experiences, societal conditioning, and even ancestral imprints. Because the way we speak to ourselves is a form of nourishment too, and our bodies are always listening. So thank you so much for being here, Tatiana. For those of you who are watching, I'm going to drop her profile in the chat. If you're inspired by her and you'd like to schedule a one-on-one call with her, you can do that right there. Tatiana, can you give us a little intro to your journey with maybe before setting boundaries with others and now where you're at now before we actually dive into the conversation?
So, hello everyone first, and I just want to say, just say my Kara, we talked briefly this morning. I was like, we feeling weird this morning. And for me, it was yesterday too. So I was scrambling this morning a lot, and I was like, okay, you don't have to be perfect because it's not about perfection. It's just about sharing our truth, and sharing something that we have been going through. And so before and after, before I was always depleted in my energy because I didn't have boundaries with myself. I didn't have self-love, and of course I didn't have boundaries with other people because I learned it since I was a little child. Like, I learned to say always yes, 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 and I didn't realize I was saying no to me, and I was investing all of my energy to pretend and to hold the peace of every environment and everything and please everyone. So I definitely have seen a big change in my well-being in general, my mental and emotional being, since I can say no when I meant to say no, and with healthy boundaries. And I have better relationships with family and friends as well. So
Mm, I
yeah,
love that. That's
difference.
perfect, especially because today's session is about boundaries that deepen connection. Now, I'm going to end this poll in about 15 seconds. So get your final answers in, and thank you so much for filling it out and taking the time. Um, yeah, it's really hard to know how to set boundaries. I think there's a lot of like modern day conversations that are happening around needing to set boundaries, right? But we don't necessarily know how to. And a lot of it, of course, is because societally we were not taught how to have boundaries. We've really been taught to sit down and listen. And a lot of the childhood programming would be like, you're a child, I'm an adult, what I say goes. I can't tell you how many times I heard that. And I didn't realize that I was a people pleaser until like my mid 20s. And I was like, dang, I've been living my whole life trying to satisfy someone else's ideal for me when it's not even what I want for myself. And I had to really learn that. So, with that, I think the first place to start asking these questions is really to understand why it's so hard to set boundaries with others. So why do you think we have that challenge with expressing our needs and limits and boundaries with those that we're close to?
I think that comes to me personally, my own experience is come to childhood. That's the first foundation what most of us learn. Like you were saying, to just the child, you be quiet, and we are the parents, and we have the truth, and nobody else can speak. So I think it's childhood, but I'll also believe very, very grounded, like I believe that is from ancestral imprints as well, because we bring that from generations to generations. Our parents learn to do the same, so they raise us the same way, like just be quiet and have no boundaries. Whatever you feel, your feelings are not important, so we learn to suppress that and just please people. Like you say, you learn, in your mid-20s. I learned my mid-30s. Almost, yeah, like it took me a long time to even realize that I was just holding that energy, just pleasing everybody except me.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things that for some people it takes a lifetime. Some people never learn it. And that's the beauty of where we start to come in, right? Because I see my grandmother. My grandmother had zero boundaries. She barely spoke. And then I see my mother, and my mom's phenomenal, and I've taught her over the years, but there are a lot of places where I'm like, Mom, you should have stronger boundaries. And then I've had to learn as well, and I've had to learn through what I didn't like seeing in others and what I decided that I wanted to start seeing in myself. But it is this journey, and it does take time, and regardless of where you're at in your life or how long you've people pleased for, that's perfectly fine. But now we get to start looking at how to do this differently. And for those of you who are live on this call, we do have a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you have questions that you would like us to answer, please leave them in the Q&A button at any time. We have a time for Q&A at the end, and we'll be able to help you dive a little bit deeper into what some of your personal questions around boundaries are, because this is one of the most requested topics that we've had. So before we dive into how to set boundaries, what are the healthy ways, what are the unhealthy ways, because I've done all of the above, I want
Yeah,
to know, I
for
think I want to know
sure.
foundationally, how can setting boundaries with others actually deepen our connections with them? Because I feel like there are a lot of fears around, like, oh, I could never say no. Oh, this will happen if I say this, whatever. So how, like, what are the healthy parts of setting boundaries, and how can that actually deepen our connections to others?
So, for me, setting healthy boundaries, some of the things that I done in the beginning, especially when I was just learning to set healthy boundaries, I didn't realize I was setting healthy boundaries. I was building walls. Like I was literally fighting to say what I wanted to say, to just say no. I was fighting with that person
Mm,
and telling that person all the reasons why I don't want to do that, and literally getting into a fight. And that's basically putting walls, like saying those walls, because now I like to say, instead of walls, we're building bridges, because when we start like talking with people and setting our boundaries in a very simple, honest way, and sure, it doesn't have to be like, we don't have to explain all the reasons why we say no to certain thing. The message doesn't get it gets to the other person. When you get so simple in your answers and your boundaries, you can transfer that message to the other person. Once you get all these details and get into kind of a fight and flight, it's like the other person start like getting lost in it. Like, I don't understand, you could have just say no. So that's what I see myself. I was building walls and protecting myself instead of building bridges to connect with people and have better relationships. So when I start seeing this as a bridge and keeping my answers short and putting my boundaries in a healthy way, I start building more healthy relationships, especially where I start with my family and close friendships, which families are like, for me, has been the most challenging. to put boundaries because of that belonging. Sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm not gonna belong to this family.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. And I think Tiffany put it in the chat, and I think it really everything that you said stems down to really that fear of rejection. You're saying no to someone and you're putting up all these walls because you think that someone is going to reject you in turn. Because I said no to this, someone isn't going to like me, or I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy enough, and I need to give all of these explanations when really it's just as simple as no. It's not a big deal. There are
Mhm.
literally only two options that you have. There's yes or there's no. So it's really not a big deal either way. I had to learn how to communicate sooner. I would communicate last minute with people on things that I knew for a really long time that were a no. And I would hurt people in the process. And I'd have to be like, I'm sorry. One of my weak points is that I don't always communicate in an appropriate time frame, and I know that, and I'm aware of that. My answer's still no, but I'm also going to work on that, and I understand how that's affected you. And I think you stepped into something really beautiful in your response, Tatiana, in regards to setting boundaries with your family and understanding how that is. So I'm curious what you've seen in what happens when we set boundaries with people that we've previously been boundaryless with.
For me, it's been a process of feeling in the beginning, feeling very uncomfortable and fear because especially with someone that you already don't have boundaries, and then all of a sudden you're changing, you're transforming all of this, you're a different person. And that's still happening to me. People who I didn't have boundaries in the past, and I start having boundaries. First of all, it's scary. It's very uncomfortable for both, for me and for the other person, because there's a change happening. And sometimes, a lot of times, being able to, with somebody that is conscious and aware of this, because not everybody is. Some people you will have to remove from your lives, and I had to do that, and it feels so empowering. It's like this friendship does no longer serve me because I cannot be the new me with this person. But for most of the time, most of my relationships, people are growing. They're in the same page that I am. They're growing and they understand that I'm changing. So it takes a little bit of time and adjustment for both of us to get used to the new. And it's also an invitation for the other person to put boundaries as well. So that's the beauty, because when we change, we give permission to the other person that it's okay to change as well. So that's been a little bit my experience, setting boundaries with someone I didn't have to. And I had to let go of some people, and it felt good. It felt
Yeah,
really good. I mean,
I
with family,
learned.
it's different. Most of the times we don't want to let go of family, right? So that's the challenge part.
And sometimes it's not fully letting go of someone. Sometimes it's taking space too. Sometimes it's like
Yes.
you just need a little bit of time to reset, and that's real. I went through a relationship revolution like a year ago where I took inventory of every relationship in my life. This was after I had a mentor teaching me boundaries and teaching me vulnerability and teaching me how to express myself. Because I have seen people go from boundaryless to like so intense with their boundaries and really hurting all of the relationships around them, which is a real reality that does happen. When you finally realize that you've been people pleasing so hard that you don't even know who you are, you can get pretty upset with yourself and pretty upset with everyone else
Yeah.
who didn't know you had boundaries because you didn't know you have boundaries, but now you want to rectify it and it can get a little messy. So that's why I love life guides. I love mentorship. I've been getting mentored for like 6 years straight by multiple mentors inside and outside of life guides. And it's helped me stay sane and it's helped me not turn into a crazy person in big moments of change. So that's one thing that I would suggest. Life guides is here for you to have one-on-one calls with a guide who can help you grow in the direction you want to grow in. So what I would do is I would literally call up my guide and I'd be like, this is what I want to say. And they'd be like, I would do that way differently, Kira. And I'd be like,
Yeah.
okay. And they would help me figure out like because I understood what I wanted to say, right? But I didn't know how to say it effectively. So, um, I think that's so important to talk about, and I think there is a way if you're surrounded by the right people, there is that way where you can realize like, oh, I'm setting my boundaries and it's inviting other people to set up their boundaries, but there's also if you're setting boundaries with people that you've previously been boundaryless with, I would say expect people to not love it. I would just have really low expectations for other people's responses, but really high expectations for your own empowerment. Because people are not used to you saying no. People are used to saying yes to everything. So when you all of a sudden switch it up and say no, it's going to make people feel uncomfortable. That's okay. You can be vulnerable and let people in on where you're at in your journey. Like, hey, I'm realizing that I've said yes to so many things that I never wanted to do, and I'm learning how to say no, and it might be a little uncomfortable. I know it's not my usual, but I'm gonna have to say no to this. What if we revisit it next week or something, you know? So, with that, what are some common boundaries that people do not set when they're in people pleaser mode? And then we're gonna move into actually baby stepping some boundaries. Oh, there is one thing in the Q&A. Perfect. If anyone else has any more for the Q&A, please drop it in. We have about 3 to 4 minutes before we get into Q&A time. So yeah, Tatiana, what are some common boundaries that people pleasers um do not set when they're people pleasing?
All right. So again, with me, one of the boundaries that were really common to me because they were almost invisible and they were so natural, it was time. Because say, oh, because I have time, I can get time, but I didn't know that my energy was being drained in it. Like even just let's say a conversation, I get on a phone call conversation with a friend. I was like, oh, I have time. I have nothing to do that day, you know. And all of a sudden, I'm for like 2 hours in the phone being drained my energy, and that was energy that I could invest in something else. So I didn't know. To me, you know, like I was not aware of that energetic exchange and how much it can drain you, and that you can say no to a conversation because you're not, you can't handle all of that your friend is like just loading on. So that's one of the most common for me, and it was almost invisible because this is it's not tech, you know, I couldn't see it for me. That like saying no, you know, is like the same, like I would say yes to everything, like even to things that it was good. Like somebody invited me to a dinner. I was like, if they invited me for a dinner, they're paying. I was like, but I don't really want to go. So it was like saying no to something that is good. And to me, it was like in my brain, it was like, but they're inviting me, they're being nice. So I should go. But the question there was, do I really feel like going? So that was one of the commons for me, and expressing my feelings as well, you know, just saying that I'm happy when I'm not happy. Like today, when I say, you know, I was scrambling this morning, it was a tough morning, you know. I'm not gonna say it was not a tough morning. So just being really honest with with my feelings.
Mm,
That's being one of the most common for me.
yeah. I feel like the reason why I had such an easeful transition into setting boundaries was because I spent a year prior learning how to be vulnerable. And your boundaries are received so much easier when you're vulnerable and when people actually
Mm.
know the why behind what you're doing, and that it's not personal. So before we get into Q&A, we have about a minute before Q&A. How do we baby step setting those boundaries? Again, because it can be really easy to turn into that fire-breathing dragon when all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, I've been boundaryless. I need all these boundaries. How do we take those little baby steps to start setting boundaries? I would love to hear from you. And I have some suggestions too. And then we'll get into Q&A.
Yeah. I think keep it short and sweet, you know. Try not to over explain. Taking time too. It's okay if you're on the phone or if you're in a text message, you know, give me some time or I get back to you later. Like it's amazing what happened in that time when you take the time to breathe and really see what you feel. Your answer becomes different. It comes more naturally and calm and not aggressive or apologetic or anything like that, but more honest. So I think baby steps should be for me is like taking time, asking for time, give me some time, I get back to you later, and coming up with short answers, really short, or ask a friend too, like you say, Kira. I do that too. Sometimes I'm about to send a long message, and I send to a friend like, "Do you think this is okay?" I'm like, "I get it what you want to say, but you're saying a bunch of things."
Yep.
So it's okay to ask to a friend, or if you have somebody here in life guides, a guide too, because the other person may not be an expert, but the other person can feel the energy and can see the too much excuses and things. So a third party can see what you cannot see. So asking for help, I think, is a big one too.
I completely agree. Having someone that you trust to help you
Yeah.
navigate the journey is huge. And Tiffany, I was just about to say something along the lines in regards to Tiffany's question. So Tiffany asks, how do you mend the relationship with someone important after setting boundaries with them for the first time? And for me, my one of my most important relationships is my childhood best friend. We've been best friends for 25 years. He got off of working 19-hour days for 8 weeks straight, no day off, no days off, and then a week off, and then recycling that for a whole year. So when he got back on the land off of that cruise ship, he kind of sucked. And this was in the middle of my friendship revolution and my relationship revolution. And I had to look at him and be like, I want you to know that I've been doing a lot of internal work. And I've been really getting clear on who I want in my life and the type of people that I want in my life. And you're in my life forever. I want you to know that. And I want you to know that this message is not personal. Letting people know it's not personal is so huge. I was like, it's not personal, but I have standards for the people who are in my life. And if you were someone who walked into my life today and the way that you act and the way that you treat me, we would not be friends. So I know you're in an interesting place in your life. We can either take some space in our friendship and you can like do whatever you need to do to get grounded and feel good, or you can start showing up like a real friend. And he started showing up and he started asking questions. And I put it in a way where, again, multiple years of actually learning how to do this, but I put it in a way where I was like, I love you unconditionally. I just can't have this energy in my life. And he was like, okay, cool. Well, I need Kira in my life, so I'm going to step up. So, Tiffany, I hope that answers the question a little bit for you. Let me know if you have more nuances to that. And Tatiana, an anonymous attendee says, and we have two questions. We might only be able to get to one,
Mhm.
but this question came in first. I'm struggling with setting boundaries with my parents. This might be a good question for you, actually, who don't speak English, so I feel a responsibility to assist with that. Not only am I their go-to for anything they need done, but they also babysit my children, paid, not as a favor, but it still feels like a favor. So they have thoughts and feedback on how I should raise my kids. It's a lot of intermingling. I'm hopelessly stuck in the endless cycle of helping even when I need a breather for my own family. Did I mention I'm the eldest daughter? This one might need a little bit more time, Tatiana, if you want to give like a simple answer on that one. Anonymous attendee, this is probably where you would do a session with Tatiana and like dive in because there's a lot going on and it's real. Um,
Yeah.
Someone in the chat says they're in the exact same boat. So yeah, Tatiana, what guidance would you have for them?
Yeah, like you say, yeah, this is like a whole dynamic, like it has to break through every little patterns that you learn to, and then you learn to help them all the time. So it's a whole thing. But I can tell you that I'm very familiar with that because family has been one of my biggest. Like recently, I have to. My mother has been asking for a favor, and she's in a different country. She doesn't speak English, and I had to be there for that. But we have a friend in common that speaks English and Spanish, and I realized that she doesn't want the help from my mom. She wants my energy. She wants me to help. Like you get out of your own way and call our friend. She's willing to help being in the middle of this and help me because I don't have the whole time to do it. And there's this dynamic of like I can feel energetically like, oh, but I give you life, I help you with this, I help you with this when you were 15 years old. So there's a whole kind of like even interaction, even manipulation when it comes with family, and we feel guilty. In this case, your mom takes care of your children and all of that. So it's a whole dynamic to set boundaries in a healthy way, and that is not draining you. And maybe even look for what other alternatives are out there that can help your parents that don't speak English, that there's a third party person that can help and collaborate, because that may be too much for you. You're busy, or you have not the energy to always be there for your parents and help with that. But feeling that of like, oh, but they take care of my children's, that's bad. That's a guilt energy, just that is heavy. If we help from that, I help because I had to, because they helped me, it becomes in not help. It becomes in something different energy, and that doesn't feel good, either for you giving or your parents receiving the help.
Mm, beautiful.
So
Yeah, it's a whole, like she said, it's a
there's a
whole,
lot of layers. Yeah.
yeah, it's not, it's going to take a lot. I mean, it's taken a lifetime for you and your family to build this relationship, so it's going to take some time to start undoing that. But if you have a guide, they can help you set a roadmap of like, okay, step one is this, and help you set those baby steps. Because right now, you're probably feeling like, I don't want you to do anything for me, but that's not realistic, and it'll probably hurt a lot of people, including yourself, in the process. So, we are coming to an end of Motivational Monday. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to answer the last question quickly, and then we're going to close out. So, anonymous attendee says, how do you know you need to set a boundary? Energy being drained. A lot of things. Every time you say yes to something you want to say no to, start setting a boundary. Every time you're doing something that you don't have the energy for, it's time to set a boundary. Every time you're at work and you're doing 7 jobs when really you were only hired for one, start setting a boundary. And the greatest boundaries start with vulnerability. So it can look like, hey, I am really struggling. I spent all weekend stressed out. I woke up Monday scrambling. I usually love my job, but all of these additional responsibilities that have been put on me, I feel like I'm drowning and I don't know what to do. Can you help me? That's a real conversation you can have with someone that's going to get you real results and start changing the way that you walk throughout your life. Um, Even if you have a friend who expects you to show up every single day for them, hey, sorry, I'm actually realizing that I have a lot less energy than I thought I did. I'm going to need to just like stay at home and chill today. I had to have that conversation with a friend this week. So there's a lot of ways we could go on and on and on about this conversation, but we are technically over our time. So thank you all so much for being here. It is always a pleasure and a joy to be here on this beautiful Monday. If you have not told yourself that you love yourself today, tell yourself that you love yourself. And since we're doing interpersonal relationships, if you haven't told someone that you love them today, tell them that you love them. And I feel like I was going to say something else. Oh, yeah, there's a survey that pops up at the end of this. Please fill it out. You can leave any love letters for Tatiana at the last question as well, and I'll make sure that she gets them. Tatiana, do you have any final words before we close today's session?
Just keep loving yourself, loving yourself. I think the best way to know when you're draining energy and breaking your own boundaries is when you step out of loving yourself. When you feel that love and you feel good with yourself, then you know when your boundaries are being crossed, because you come out of that bubble of love for yourself. So keep
Mm.
loving yourself.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have the most beautiful week. We will see you on Monday and stay motivated, stay happy, stay loving yourself, and we'll talk soon. Bye, everyone.